Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Representatives from the Hong Kong police force say that a would-be thief is in custody this week, following an equally bizarre and terrifying incident in which he allegedly tried to rob a woman while high on drugs with a bunch of fake money stuffed into his pants. According to local news sources, the whole thing happened shortly before 2 p.m. on January 14th, when the victim, a woman identified only by the last name of Eng, used an ATM in the city's Mong Kok shopping district. After withdrawing 20,000 Hong Kong dollars, the equivalent of about 2,600 USD, she began walking down the road towards a nearby plaza. What she didn't know, though, was that a man was following closely behind her. He trailed her for about 100 yards before attacking her and trying to snatch her purse. Luckily for the woman, 2 bystanders who saw what was going on immediately jumped in to help, one of whom was an off-duty police officer. They managed to restrain the robber until more help could arrive. When police got to the scene, they questioned the suspect, identified by the last name of Kwok, who told them that he had taken space oil that day. For those unaware, space oil is the name of a new street drug that has recently exploded in popularity across Hong Kong. It comes in liquid form and is generally vaped by users. There is apparently no standard recipe, so to speak, for the drug, though it often contains mixtures of cannabinoids, ketamine, and etomidate, a medical-grade sedative. Following Kwok's arrest, one more strange discovery was made. While searching his person, officers reportedly found 21 fake $500 Hong Kong banknotes stuffed into his underwear. So far, it's unclear why Kwok had the counterfeit currency or where he got it. When the incident was over, both Kwok and Eng were taken to a local hospital. The female victim was treated for minor injuries, while Kwok was taken in for a mental health evaluation. Representatives from Japan's Tokyo Metropolitan Police say that 8 people are injured this week and a young woman is in custody following a hammer attack on the campus of a local university. The incident began around 3:45 p.m. on January 10th inside of a lecture hall at Hosei University, located in the city's Machida ward. At the time, around 150 students were in the middle of an economics class when suddenly the place erupted into chaos. According to witnesses, they were about 10 minutes into their lecture when a female student who had been at the front of the class got up and walked to the back. Moments later, she pulled out a hammer and began attacking several of her classmates from behind. The whole thing apparently didn't last very long, but still at least 8 people were hit during the attack. The female attacker was restrained by school staff as she attempted to head back to the front of the classroom. Police and emergency responders arrived shortly after, and although no one required hospitalization, they say that multiple people were treated for head wounds. As for the suspect, she was arrested at the scene. She was later identified as a 22-year-old South Korean national named Yoo Joo-hyun, who had come to Japan to attend school. After being taken into custody, Yoo reportedly revealed her motive, telling police that she had lashed out as a result of bullying. She told authorities, quote, "I was bullied on a regular basis and thought I was being looked down on. I thought the only way to stop the bullying, the only solution, was to attack the students who were in the same class." She also claimed she had found the hammer used in the crime in another classroom earlier that same day and had hidden it in her coat pocket prior to the attack. While further details of the alleged bullying are not known, police say that at least some of the victims did not even know Yoo. At the time of this recording, she remains in custody. The family of a UK high school student are shocked and in mourning after the teenage boy was the victim of a vicious ambush last week that ended in his death. The incident took place shortly before 6 p.m. on January 8th in the town of Bedford, England. 17-year-old Thomas Taylor had finished up school for the day a short time earlier and was on his way home when suddenly he was attacked. The attack happened as Thomas was walking along Greenhill Street, not far from the Bedford bus station. He was beaten and stabbed by a group of at least 5 other young people who proceeded to kick him as he lay critically injured on the ground. CCTV captured the suspects, all of whom were dressed in black and wearing face masks, running from the area moments later. Though Thomas was rushed to a hospital after help was called, sadly, he couldn't be saved. He was pronounced dead shortly after his arrival there. So far, very little additional information has been released about the motive behind the case. Police have not commented on whether they believe this was a robbery gone wrong, whether Thomas was specifically targeted, or what theories are being investigated. What we do know, though, is that the murder came as a huge shock to pretty much everyone who knew him. Loved ones described the teen as a funny and fun-loving person who cared deeply about his family and was looking forward to what was supposed to be a bright future. According to representatives at his school, he was intelligent and doing well in his classes during his final year there. So far, 4 people have been charged with murder in connection with the crime. 2 18-year-olds, identified as Ahmed Adam and Bennett Ndenke, as well as a 16 and 17-year-old who have not been named due to their ages. Another 16-year-old was also arrested, though it appears they have so far been released on bail as the investigation continues. Anyone with information about the incident is encouraged to contact the Bedfordshire Police or to reach out through Crime Stoppers. Authorities in the Australian state of Queensland say that they are searching for the person responsible for nearly killing a 33-year-old woman after she was shot in a mysterious incident last week while helping a friend move. The whole thing began sometime in the early afternoon on January 8th, when police were called to a residence on Trees Road in the Gold Coast suburb of Tallybudgera. Officers arrived to find a woman, 33-year-old Lindley Anyos, who was suffering from a single gunshot wound to her back. It appears that Lindley had been sitting in the passenger seat of a car outside of the property when she was shot through the back of her seat. The 33-year-old was very seriously wounded and as a result was rushed to a nearby hospital. Once there, she was put into a medically induced coma. Though she was later stabilized and is now expected to survive, doctors say she is still in rough shape and will likely be left with life-changing injuries. While this was happening, authorities began investigating the shooting, which apparently turned out to be easier said than done. According to police, they received inconsistent reports from witnesses about what had happened. What everyone agrees on is that Lindley had come to the residence that day to help one of her friends, who was in the middle of moving and was getting rid of a lot of furniture and other items. However, the circumstances surrounding the actual shooting remain unclear. Police have even said that it may have been an accident. Despite this, they say that they are searching for a man alleged to have been involved. However, so far they have not been able to find him, and the man's identity has not been released to the public. Immediately after the incident, it's believed that the man fled the area in a large white flatbed truck. That truck was later found abandoned. A subsequent attempt to locate the suspect at a property in the nearby suburb of Southport likewise came up empty. Police say they believe the man was there at some point, but had since left. According to local media sources, things get stranger, because just 2 days before the shooting, Lindley had been in court for a gun-related incident of her own. Reports state that she was arrested in August of 2020 after a loaded gun was found in her vehicle following a road rage incident. She had also previously served time in jail for other crimes, including drug-related offenses. Lindley's loved ones told the media that she had a difficult childhood and that she had fallen in with the wrong crowd as she got older. However, in the last couple of years, she had been taking steps to get her life back on track. In another strange and sad coincidence, it was reported that someone from the same group of people she hung out with, 23-year-old Chloe Mason, was fatally shot just last month. That incident does not appear to be linked with Lindley's shooting, and arrests have been made in that case. At the time of this recording, this is more or less where the investigation stands. Police say they are still on the hunt for Lindley's alleged shooter, and that they are working hard to successfully bring the search to an end. A 19-year-old Argentina thief was apparently served a heaping spoonful of instant karma this week after he carjacked a rideshare driver, only to quickly crash the vehicle and find himself under arrest after he tried to hide out in a rather unlucky location. According to reports, it all started sometime on the night of January 7th when an Uber driver in the city of Córdoba picked up the male suspect, who was posing as an ordinary passenger. For most of the ride, things went normally. That was, until the victim went to drop off the man at his destination in the city's Marques Anexo neighborhood. Instead of getting out, the 19-year-old allegedly attacked the driver, striking him multiple times in the head before forcing him out and taking off in his red Fiat. Though the 19-year-old managed to flee the scene, unfortunately for him, he didn't make it very far before police caught up. He was pretty easy to find since, he stole an Uber and the app was still tracking all of the car's movements. Even so, apparently he wasn't willing to give up just yet, prompting a chase. That chase continued for some time until the teen suspect attempted to pull off a desperate maneuver. While trying to get away from pursuing officers, he drove perpendicular across several lanes of traffic, not realizing that there was a large drainage ditch on the other side. The car went headfirst into the ditch, immobilizing the vehicle. While the man once again managed to flee, this time on foot, it wasn't long before his bad luck caught up to him when he attempted to hide at a property close to the crash site. It turned out that property belonged to a prison guard who promptly helped police to arrest him. At the time of this recording, the unidentified suspect remains in custody and is awaiting formal charges. Authorities in Nigeria's Nasarawa state say that they are investigating a truly awful crime this week after a man allegedly brutally murdered a young woman, getting caught when he attempted to dispose of some of the remains during a church service. The whole thing began on the morning of January 12th when worshippers at a church in the town of Orozo were gathered for their normal Sunday service. It was around 11 a.m. and things were close to wrapping up when a couple of members of the congregation noticed something strange. While everyone was supposed to be in the middle of final prayers, one of those in attendance, a 32-year-old gospel singer named Timalayan Ajayi, had walked off towards a nearby river. He seemed to be acting suspiciously and was carrying a black nylon bag, which he apparently threw in moments later. When the church members went to ask Ajayi what he was doing, he denied doing anything wrong. However, things quickly changed when a man on a motorcycle pulled up who said that he had dropped the 32-year-old off earlier that morning. He claimed that during the trip, he had noticed blood dripping from the black bag that Ajayi was carrying. As soon as the church members said that they needed to retrieve the bag from the river, Ajayi took off running. The congregants, as well as other bystanders, were able to catch the 32-year-old before he made it very far. But things were about to get much darker. When the black bag was pulled from the water, it was found to contain the severed head of a young woman. The woman was soon identified as 24-year-old Salome Adaidu, a member of the National Youth Service Corps and an employee of an insurance company in the capital of Abuja. When a search was conducted of Ajayi's home in a neighboring town, police discovered the rest of Salome's remains. Horrifyingly, local news sources state that her body had been cut into more than 50 pieces. In an interview following Ajayi's arrest, he was quite open with media about what he had done. He admitted that he committed the murder, telling reporters he killed Salome because they were dating, but that she had been seeing other men. He said he stabbed her to death after he discovered messages with other people on her phone. Despite Ajayi's disturbingly cavalier remarks, Salome's family have since disputed a number of his claims. They say that the pair were not dating, and that they had never even heard of Ajayi until they were notified that Salome had been murdered. Instead, they have speculated that Ajayi committed the crime in order to get his hands on human remains, either to perform some sort of ritual or for the purposes of consuming pieces of the body. So far, it appears authorities have not commented on any of this and are continuing their investigation. Ajayi remains in custody, and they say formal charges will follow once the investigation is complete. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you probably remember that last week we brought you an extremely unsettling story out of Brazil. It was here, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, that a woman was accused of fatally poisoning several members of her husband's family by slipping a deadly toxin into a Christmas dessert. The whole thing began right before the holidays, on December 23rd, when the victims were having a family Christmas party at one of their houses in the city of Tôrres. One of those in attendance, a 60-year-old woman named Zeli dos Anjos, brought a fruitcake which she had baked herself and shared with her loved ones. However, not long after it was sliced and passed out, everyone who ate it became violently ill. Several were hospitalized shortly after, and sadly, 3 later died, 2 of Zeli's sisters, as well as her niece. Because the only person at the party not to get sick also hadn't eaten Zeli's cake, the source of the deaths was quickly linked back to the dessert. Sure enough, it was found to have extremely high levels of arsenic in it. So was the flour in Zeli's house that had been used to bake it. At first, Zeli was the prime suspect since she had made the dessert, though police began to suspect that someone else was responsible. As we told you last time, Zeli herself was one of the people who was hospitalized, and she had eaten more of the cake than anyone. Upon further investigation, authorities found the alleged culprit, Zeli's daughter-in-law, Daisy Moura dos Anjos. Daisy was known to have a troubled relationship with Zeli, and a search of her cell phone revealed that she had been researching arsenic and arsenic poisoning in the lead-up to the crime. At the time of our last recording, Daisy had been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, but the investigation was still underway. Well, according to the latest reports, things have now gotten even darker. If you recall, we mentioned last week that Zeli's husband, Paulo, had also died very recently. He passed away in September, and at the time it was assumed to be a simple case of food poisoning. However, following the allegations against Daisy, authorities exhumed Paulo's body. Testing has now concluded that he also died of arsenic poisoning. It's now believed that Daisy put arsenic into her father-in-law's powdered milk, just like she is accused of contaminating Zeli's flour. This week, investigators further revealed that they have been able to find records of Daisy purchasing the arsenic allegedly used in the crime. They say she bought it over the internet, and that those documents are now part of the growing body of evidence against her. Not much else has been released about why Daisy supposedly hated her in-laws so much, though additional witnesses apparently told them this had been going on for a long time. Police also say they found an audio recording on Daisy's phone where she refers to Zeli as a pest. At the time of this recording, she remains in custody while the investigation continues. Authorities in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh say that they are searching for the prime suspect in a twisted murder case after the bodies of an entire family were discovered under horrifying circumstances in the middle of last week. The whole thing began on the evening of January 9th, when a brother of 38-year-old Mohammed Moin went to check on him and his family in the city of Meerut. He had gone there after he wasn't able to get in contact with Mohammed for roughly 24 hours. At first, the brother wasn't all that worried. Mohammed worked as a mason, and he and his wife Asma and their 3 young girls were in the middle of a busy time. They had recently purchased some land in the area, and construction was almost done on their new home. They were temporarily staying at a rental property, but it was almost time for their big move. However, that started to change when Mohammed's brother arrived at the rental property and found the place locked, and he couldn't hear any sounds of activity inside. After calling local police, officers made their way in. What they found was incredibly chilling. The small rental home had been ransacked, and items were scattered everywhere. That wasn't all, though. Pretty soon, all 5 of the family members were found dead. Mohammed was found tied to a bed in the main room. Asma and the 3 girls, meanwhile, ages 8, 4, and 1, had been stuffed into bags, and their bodies had been concealed in a storage compartment under the bed. Police determined that all 5 of the victims had been beaten to death with a blunt object that they believe was some kind of metal rod. Based on the lack of defensive injuries, they also say the family members were likely drugged before they were murdered. After speaking to several other relatives of the victims, authorities learned that the crime could have been motivated by a property dispute. The exact nature of that dispute has not been revealed, though fingers were quickly pointed at one of Mohammed's stepbrothers, a man by the last name of Naeem. 3 people linked to Naeem, including one of his childhood friends, were reportedly rounded up and arrested following further investigation. However, so far police say that Naeem himself has managed to avoid capture. According to local news sources, the man is said to have an extensive network of contacts in the city of Mumbai, where it's believed he may have fled after the murders. Authorities say locating him will be difficult, not only because Mumbai is halfway across the country, but because Naeem also reportedly has several different aliases and hideouts. At the time of this recording, the manhunt continues, and police are still questioning the suspects that are currently in custody. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.